Welcome to my budget deck channel where I try to make decks as cheap and playable as possible. So if this is something you're interested in, then why not subscribe? We are back with 10 replays, 10 consecutive duels in the ranked ladder. This time started in Platinum 3. Will we have progressed? Will we have degressed? We shall see. The first game is against the old nemesis of ranked Q right now, Tearlaments, and we lost the die roll, so we are going second. Is this gonna be something that we can salvage? Doubtful, but we shall see in the replay. I could have done the whole thing in live duels, but I feel like in live duels it takes a lot longer, and also I need my own space to think sometimes because I'm already bad enough as it is. Obviously, they hit every single combo on this planet. They've had so many great mills already. They started off their plays really well, and we now have to see what we can be doing against this. Rikka, usually not like an amazing card, but right now it is hampering our plays quite a lot. And they obviously hit both of their mill 5s. They're already getting rid of stuff in my graveyard. They're already shuffling back some of their stuff. They're triggering more effects. Their end board will be absolutely crazy. It is like their deck only plays some of the Tearlaments cards. I don't think I've seen many other cards besides the Tearlaments or the Ishizu cards, so very lucky on them possibly, but also they have a graveyard shutdown, which does harm us quite a bit. They have Rikka, does harm us quite a bit, and they have El Shaddol Winda, does harm us quite a bit, and not enough with this one. They also still have in the graveyard Keldo and Mudora, so we are royally screwed in this one. Let's see what I try to do here. We draw into Rikka Petal, not that it matters. I thought maybe go for Petal here because the only card that could possibly fetch something, if they have an Ash Blossom as well, then might as well get it out now. Other than that, we can only special summon once. There was no way how I'm getting over this. What I could have done is Monster Reboard, but then they would have just shuffled the monster in because I have to target it first, and then we'd have lost that one. And yeah, there was no way that could have helped us really through this. I tried to go for the Rikka play, so now I can search the Rikka field spell and do some Rikka stuff, possibly during their turn, and maybe salvage what I've gotten myself into here. At this point, there was a big deciding point. What monster do I tribute and what monster do I let? Because I now had to decide, let live. And I decided to go for a tribute this one because I thought the other one can come back and then trigger more effects, but possibly considering they had this trap, I should have possibly tributed Rikka, then they couldn't have negated the effect and I would have been possibly able to do a bit more. But in the end, it really didn't matter all that much because yeah, they still had lots of things because I couldn't really have finished them here. There was a possible chance that if I would have done this, and I wasn't sure because this would still count as this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, and then you could just special summon the card back. So in the end, I don't think I would have gained much from tributing this, beside the fact that they could then negate my effect of the card that I used, and then in the end could have stolen their cards till the end phase, and then they would have gotten it back, and then we would have been in the exact same position. So I don't think it mattered much what I do. If you know a way how I could have played this better, then let me know in the comments, but I don't think even if I would have tributed Rikka, it would have made much of a difference because they still have Tearlaments Scream Up. There was no way for me to get completely rid of this card because Rikka summons itself back, unless for some reason it doesn't count as being tributed by a card effect. But I think since it's the effect of the field spell that tributes it, and it's not because it's for cost, I think this is how it works. I wasn't 100% sure, but I thought then this card would be able to summon itself back. Let's just enjoy, lean back, and see what they can come up with. We already see Chainlink 4. This is not going to go down well for me. They are going to shuffle the only cards back that actually would have helped me. Yes, we still have Monster Reborn, but there comes Winda out again. Yay, everything in my graveyard is gone anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Trying to go into some stuff here, but they shuffle just everything back because they have so many plays locked and loaded in the graveyard. And let's be honest, we didn't think budget Sylvan deck would be very good going second against Tearlaments. It is what it is in the end. There could have been some different plays, but in my personal opinion, it would have always ended back at this exact point where they can just go into the battle phase and end it here. There's nothing else I can be doing about it, and that is them finishing up the game. Maybe we're a bit luckier in the second game, who knows. Let's move on to that one and forget about this one as quickly as possible. Second replay, we actually won the coin flip and got to go first. Yes, now I can totally show off what this deck can do. Amazing starting hand, lots of different plays. We have Evil Thorn, we have Rikka Princess, we have White Rose Cloister. So we already have 3 monsters on board guaranteed, unless of course they have something that throws a bit of a wrench in our plans. And of course they do Maxi. You will now see what happens if you try to take the Maxi challenge, everybody. There we go, 1 mill that does stuff, 2nd mill that does stuff, and a 3rd mill that does stuff. Very, very entertaining. Imagine how this would have been if Maxi wasn't part of that mix. Sadly it is, but we can let them draw a lot of cards, and that's exactly what we're going to do. You can probably already kind of guess what the outcome of this is, but look at how many disruptions we can play through with this hand. We played through Ash Blossom right now, that's 1, that's very unusual for this specific deck as well, and now we can keep comboing off, keep getting Yugioh back and milling 3 cards, and we are quite lucky with the mills. Now we even have technically a protection from hand traps as soon as we go into a Rikka monster on board. Could have done that a bit earlier, but it didn't really matter all that much because they didn't, I don't think, used any more hand traps that stopped us. This one, the Yugioh, kind of failed because we milled 2 spells. We didn't mill them, but we excavated 2 spells, but we can still carry on. I thought we have still lots of stuff in our deck that we haven't used so far, so why not go into more Sylvan plays, and from this point onwards we can finally go into the Rikka, so we have some protection from hand traps, and then go into Bengal Lancer and stop here. There would have been a few more steps that we could have been taking in getting 1 more card on board, one of the Rikka monsters. First of all, they have evenly matched, so getting rid of lots of stuff, and yeah, but in the end I think our mills let us down a few times, and they are playing Labrynth, so in the end the Maxi didn't do that much to them, but lots of choice, and that is a bit of an issue. They obviously still got very, very, very much from the whole thing. Now they use their anti-Tearlaments card, which does hurt us a little bit at least, but not a crazy amount, and now they call it Synchros because we have a tuner on board. Little do they know, we ran basically out of Synchros. There's nothing else we could have done Synchro-wise. We already went through most of our plays. I do still have the whole Rikka engine in deck, so there's still stuff that we can be doing, and hopefully they hinder themselves by banishing their 1 lady, but they have a 2nd one in deck. Who would have thought? Very, very annoying. I thought maybe if I get rid of this now because their own trapper would banish it, I could be fine-ish, but we are not, and they have lots of traps. They can pop lots of things. I cannot clear the board again. I couldn't chain my Rikka monster to tribute their monster as well, to the effect that would pop my Rikka monster, so there was nothing I could have done here. Going into Queen Strenna now, they send Queen Strenna back, but what do you know, I still have 2 more level 4s on board, so I can just go into it again. Not that it overly matters, but now we can be doing some stuff, searching the Rikka spell again, so technically I can be attributing the opponent's monster if they use a monster effect, but if they just run into me, there is nothing much more I could have done. And yeah, Maxi is Maxi in the end. They get rid of this one, and they pop multiple things, they activate multiple effects here, and this is our certain demise. Maybe I should have slowed down on the Maxi thing, but against trap decks, this deck has an awful matchup in general because you don't have any ways of clearing set traps, and you don't really have any way of negating trap card effects. So in the end, doesn't really matter what we would have done. I don't think we would have been able to come back all that much from it. Going into this one, they send it back to the extra deck, and at that point, it is time to lose. Hopefully they just go into the battle phase, which I think they were good. I think they did. I didn't think they do any more plays, and they just finish us here. Well, a 2nd game, 2nd loss, but you got a glimpse of what the deck is capable of and how it is a bit fun to play, which you couldn't do against Tearlaments, but here you saw a glimpse of what is up in the next replays. So let's not wait for longer and hopefully get that very first W. We have lost yet another die roll coin flip and have to go 2nd. Thing is, we are playing against a hero player, and the hero player possibly is new to the deck and hasn't quite figured out the combos yet. So the end board they will end on isn't too crazy, isn't too exciting, or doesn't hinder us too much, I want to say, or at all. They could have really gone into any good combos. I don't think it's the hand. I'm pretty sure an experienced hero player would have turned this whole thing into at least 2 or 3 disruptions on my turn. This one, not so much, which is fine. We're all new to some decks sometimes. We're all trying to do certain things here and try out certain stuff and don't really maybe know what is happening here. The thing is, I think their major mistake was if they wanted to set up Shadow Mist to use the Shadow Mist effect of the effect in the graveyard to search stuff, but they kind of had to anyway, because you can't use both of them. Maybe they didn't realize that you can't use both Shadow Mist effects during the same turn. And then they wanted to go into Dark Law, obviously against, well, Tearlaments. That would have been really nice, and against us as well, but now they couldn't have searched Mask Change, and there was nothing else they could have done from that point onwards. I don't know, but at this point this isn't a massive threat to us, and we have White Rose Cloister and a second field spell. They do not collide though, because once we use the effect of this to special summon things, we use it technically as a worse normal double summon, which I just realized. So technically double summon would also work in this deck, but I kind of like it because it does have a second effect that does stuff, and there is theoretically a way of being able to search this. And since you run such so many monsters, this card came in handy in these 10 duels a lot more often than I thought. Here, for example, oh, Ash Blossom Blade, they did Ash us, but we can still keep going because we still have our normal summon now, and we have the whole Rikka plays here. Let's not talk about that one, but we would have still been able to do some stuff from that position. We had Rose Lover, could have linked that off and summoned stuff from our hand, but obviously the whole Rikka stuff helped us enormously. Going into Queen Strenna using the effect to get a card back to our hand, because we haven't used our normal summon yet, or we have used our normal summon, but we cannot, we can summon this out with the effect of this one. And I went into the protection because what if they run stuff like Torrential Tribute? Some hero players like old school cards, and I did not want to be wiped out by certain cards, so I thought maybe protection from being from destruction is better here than a monster negate, and in the end it was. We go into the Adamancipator, we excavate the cards, and oof, they're doozies. We can really do lots of with this one. We mill kind of some stuff. The thing is, lots of the things that we would have been able to mill wouldn't really have mattered here because we couldn't summon more, but gladly we didn't mill anything that mattered too much, and in the end they surrendered because we would have walked with this game big time at that point. Nothing more to talk about it. You saw some of the plays, you saw how resilient the deck can be against 1 or 2 disruptions. Other than that, not crazy good of a duel, but we've got that first W. Let's move on to the 4th duel and see if we can continue that winning streak of ours. We lost yet another coin flip. Oof, totally different than the UA video, am I right? Yes, this time we are going second again. Who would have thought? We start with quite a good hand for this. It's not terrible. We have some plays. We can play around like 1 disruption at least, so maybe we have a chance here. And the opponent plays Dragonmaid, so I was like, okay, they don't usually put up the craziest stuff, so maybe there's a way of being able to beat them at least. Would be nice. At least it looks like it's a somewhat decent duo. They didn't go into the fusion, but they have some stuff they can be doing, and we have some stuff we can be doing. I decided to go for Cloister, and then they have Horrors again, Maxi. I didn't learn from my experience at first. I decided to, well, let's take the Maxi challenge, shall we? I could have kind of just ended my turn here and hoped they didn't draw into anything good. We get Ash Blossomed here on this one. Interesting choice. I mean, technically it can be a +3, so not too bad. Called by the Grave on this one, so we had Maxi, Ash Blossom, and Called by the Grave, but we do keep going. Not that Maxi has hindered us in this ability. It should have in my mind, but it didn't in fact, because I thought, well, let's just keep going. There is a way that we can OTK here, and I think I just about miss it. There was a way that I actually would have been able to OTK. I'll be talking about this in a second. Right now, we build a board, we look for stuff. I thought going for the level 4 thing so I can go into Strenna would be the option here, because there's a way of getting carried weight to the graveyard, and we mill 1 more card that does stuff for us here. We can reduce the attack points, very, very nice, and now we can send Yugioh back to our field, mill 3 more cards that hopefully do stuff, and some of them do. So we have hit not the jackpot, but we have gotten into our Lone Fire Blossom. Very important. We can do the whole spiel again, let us go, but we don't do it because we don't need to mill more. It's way better here to go actually into Teardrop, and then with Teardrop I get rid of one of their dragons just to boost my attack points here and create more room for future plays, so I can actually mill some more stuff. We mill another card that does stuff. We do have some plays here. We could have gotten Martial Leaf if we had one more thing, and this is the point where, well, it gets a bit difficult. I could have done something else here, and there was the chance to go into Strenna, and Strenna would have helped here very, very much, because with Strenna on board, I could have, when they activated the Chamber Dragonmaid effect, I could have negated that, and then I would have still had a monster on board that has more damage than this one, because Strenna then replaces itself in comparison to the one that I did send to the graveyard, because Sylvan Princess Bite does not replace themselves. I knew they had the Dragonmaid that boosts attack. Well, I knew they had the chance of it. I hoped they didn't have it, because they already sent one to the graveyard, and usually a lot of the Dragonmaid decks don't play more than one, if one at all. So I thought maybe I'm safe here. I wasn't safe, but I calculated in if I would have gone into Strenna here instead of some other plays along the way, because I had the opportunity to go into it, I would have been able to get 2 level 4s on board. Then I would have been able to possibly win this game, if I'm not mistaken, because here I have enough attack to even beat over it. That's why I decided to attack with this one first. And now I lacked the damage because I don't have the monster on board that has enough damage. But if I would have tributed Strenna and not gone for this one, then I would have had another monster on board with more attack, and that would be our Sacred Tree Beast. Plus I would have had a negate for the next turn. There would have been options to win this game, I'm certain, but in the end I did miss it, because sometimes it isn't easy, and now they just disrupt my whole board. I thought at least I was going to be fine with the disruptions I had, possibly because Dragonmaids have clear-ish choke points. They also drew into Raigeki, of course, so it wouldn't have mattered in the end. Maxi does that to you. Let's check. They are left with 13 cards in the deck, so we did increase their hand size by quite a lot. In the end, it is what it is. They can now pop off, and there's nothing we can be doing about this. Sadly, misplays happen, or sometimes you think you're doing the right play, but you haven't thought it completely through. This is why I won't win a YCS or anything like this. I am just not that experienced of a Yu-Gi-Oh player, and they go for the easy OTK here. Not too much of an achievement, I would say, if you have a hand of 20 cards during your turn. So there's lots of plays they could have been doing, but there was a chance of winning this duel even through Maxi and Ash Blossom and Called by the Grave. So it at least speaks for the deck's ability to be able to compete with other rogue-ish decks and to compete with certain hand traps. So I'm already glad about that one. Let's move on to the next duel. We won the coin flip, yay, and we get to go first, but spoiler, this is against Tearlaments again. The Nemesis has returned. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be going that far with it, and once you see what they have, obviously Open with Halfness, and now see what they milled. They mill 1 Tearlaments and the Tearlaments trap to add 1 card to their hand. At this point, I already basically knew this isn't going to be winnable anymore. Kit Kalos is going to trigger. Kit Kalos can now go into all kinds of things because it can send stuff to the graveyard as well, and so on. They even DD Crow here, not that it matters at all. But yeah, they can get rid of all of our plays. We have multiple plays at our disposal, but it really doesn't matter at this point. We can go into stuff. They negate this effect, then we have technically another effect, but they go into more stuff and get rid of our monster on board here. And then at this point, we cannot be doing anything anymore because we don't have a monster that we contribute. We are out of our normal summon, and we have nothing in our graveyard that does stuff either, so we have to just pass the turn. And if we think they are going to stop here, then we are massively mistaken. They of course have the one-off field spell as well. Drew that for turn, then I assume Sheeran is gonna mill some more stuff. They have Medora. For some reason they want to get rid of some of my graveyard things and obviously get their spell back. They didn't have much more. They gladly didn't mill a Tearlament. Not that it overly matters because this will be a Tearlament's trap most likely, and yes it is. I thought the play here, okay, was, I kind of want to explain this. I thought normal summon Spore, So we have Sport in the graveyard, then summon the Rikka Fairy, and if they then negate something here, then I can use the Fairy in graveyard, because the thing is, I could have linked this off, but there was nothing else in graveyard, so it didn't really matter that much. And if I would have sent the level 1 link monster tribute to that off and sent it to the graveyard, then I still couldn't have gotten Sport back. So this was kind of my play here, normal summon Sport, and hopefully have something that I can be doing, but they had the effect negate, so it didn't really matter in the long run. And now they can just shuffle this one back, and at this point we ran out of plays entirely, because they have already gotten rid of all of our things in the graveyard, and there were no more plays to be done. It is what it is sometimes. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you get queued up against Tearlaments with Sylvans. Very fun. We have achieved nothing in this duel, and was it fun? Meh. Let's move on to the next one and forget about this one as quickly as possible. We are at the halfway point and have only won 1 game so far. Tragic. Could have been 2, should have been possibly 2, and we are playing against 60 cards, Rock, Adamancipator, possibly Vernisylph kind of shenanigans. And I did get to go first. I won the coin flip. I actually lost the coin flip and they made me go first. So I thought, oh, I'm going to be playing again against 8 axes, whatever. But they have maxi 60 cards and they still draw maxi. So what do I think? Ooh, let's keep going. Let's take the maxi challenge. I think at this point, actually keep it on the down low a little bit. I only do as much as I have to bring out a somewhat competitive board state in the end through maxi. Because you can't just pass with this deck unless you have specifically the Rikka combo. And I try to go into it as quickly as possible here. And I do draw into Rikka sheet, which was very, very helpful. So I can search Glamour for the next turn here. Not that it overly matters, but that was possible. Possibly trying to beat Ash Blossoms at this point. Can go into rank 8s now. We have a Monster Negate, and we have we have Bangalancer, and we have the Rikka combo, so not a bad board in total. We have some of the we don't have the Monster Negate in the graveyard because we still have it here, so I will probably get rid of the Rikka effect somewhat early-ish, so I can have the Monster Negate live, but in the end it didn't really matter overly. I did make a slight mistake here, mainly because of the fact that you will see that in a second. See, this didn't really matter because I couldn't use the Rikka effect. We have been gamma sealed, and they also have Monster Reborn, then they get our Rikka back. And at this point I was like, well, for Rikka Princess, you do need to control a Rikka monster, otherwise you don't have it. And what do I have here? Rikka sheet. So I thought maybe if I steal my own teardrop, then I control a Rikka monster again, and then I can use the effect again to have a monster negate, and that can be very, very important. Might have been wrong because they do go into Block Dragon here. I wonder if it would have been different if I just attributed this card, stole Block Dragon, and maybe they would have had to pass turn because they already used their normal summon. We will never find out because I was so focused on the play of getting Rikka back to have one more monster negate, because I thought, oh, I can just negate the effect of Block Dragon in the graveyard. Wouldn't that be good? Because otherwise I wasn't sure how it works with if they run into this card by battle and then it is sent from the field to the graveyard and then they still trigger it. I didn't want to be risking that. I still had the bounce of Bangalancer, so I could have still used that. In the end, yeah, it might have been a misplay on my part, but the greed. I thought it was going to be fine, but sadly they also had the Call by the Grave, so I could not have been doing this. And I thought maybe if I give them the Block Dragon back, they have lots of other spells in their hand, or have to banish this one with some other stuff, but they already had like 2 earth monsters and just needed 2 more in hand at this point, so they could still do the whole combo. And they had, obviously they had enough cards because this one also searches 1, so this was very, very, very idiotic by me to Bangalancer back the card. Could have used Bangalancer on one of the Adamancipators then, but they still would have been able to summon out the second, if I'm not mistaken. In theory it might have worked, but they had a rock monster on board anyway, so they could have gone into either one of them, and from that point onwards they just go into any place. So even if I would have flipped this one back to the hand, they couldn't summon it. They could have just summoned one of the other ones, because all they need is they needed an Adamancipator monster, so technically they might not have been able to do this. So if I would have gotten them this one back to their hand, maybe their plays would have stopped here. Also another option that could have been, but yeah, I have no idea how to play this that well at that point, since you don't know their hand and they already max seed. Very difficult, but there were definitely options where I could have played it a lot better, and possibly this would have ended the turn, because then they wouldn't have been able to go into Seeker actually, because Seeker can only special summon if you have an Adamancipator monster on hand, on board. So there was a chance that this wasn't going to happen, but they still had the whole block dragon continuously popping off, continuously coming back to the board. So don't think it would have made much of a difference. And then what happens? We win because time limit. Time limit. That is the best win condition of all time. Of all time, exactly. So yeah, we scrape a victory here on them not doing a proper time management, but yeah. We had chances, there were some misplays. In the end, I kind of get rewarded for the fact that I could have won against Dragonmaids, and I possibly could have done a tiny bit better against this one. And against the first Tearlaments, there might have been a chance that I've played this a tiny bit differently. I don't think there was actually, but there were two biggerish misplays in these two games, so I am getting rewarded for this one unnecessarily. We move to the 7th replay. We have lost the next coin flip and we are going second again. The starting hand isn't too bad, but it depends what we're playing against, and they start off with the whole adventure combo. We would have to be dealing with one negate unless they do some other stuff with it, which they will. Little spoiler, it's a virtual world deck. There we go, virtual world going into the trap cards. And from that point onwards, they go into multiple different combos. I have not played Virtual World that much, so I don't know if and how much they are doing wrong here. Can't really tell what is important with Virtual Worlds. I know what the trap does, I know what some of the extra deck monsters do, but that is about it. They try to go off some stuff, and I think they have like a Macrocosmos effect, which they do not end up with. I'm very happy about that, but I'm not sure if they couldn't have or didn't want to. They go into one negate here, they go into something else. I think they go into the Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal, the Burning Abyss card, and they send to the graveyard some stuff, they add some stuff, they change levels, they go into the Sword Soul monster, which I find very, very intriguing here. Because do they have effects that banish during my turn, possibly from the graveyard? I don't know, but they thought this was the best option here to have this up and nothing else. I want to explain my play here a little bit, because this is the Spore play I was actually referring to. Here I thought, looking at all of this hand, because if I normal summon any of those and use the effect, then they would just negate that, most likely I assume, and then I cannot do anything else. I thought, if I get Spore on boards, and they do not deal with Spore, then what I can be doing is I can technically be summoning something from the graveyard like the Spore effect, and then use the other Rikka card in hand, because they only have one negate, but they do have some, like if Spore banishes itself, then it didn't really matter because they still had the Sword Soul card and they would still be able to get rid of my stuff. Well, that is what I thought I was going to do, and at this point I wanted to get Spore into the graveyard. I could have just kept it up and then tributed it, and then they would have negated the effect, and then my other monster would have been in the graveyard. Then I could have summoned Spore again, and then I could have used the Rikka effect. Don't know why I then went into the Sun Avalon Link. I thought, why not? But then they used the trap effect to destroy it. In the end, it wouldn't have mattered because they would have been able to get rid of so many of my things. Just with the whole banishing of Spore already is very detrimental to their card effect, so there was no way of us getting out of there in the first place. Thing is, I could have not done that, and then I would have been able to use the Spore effect with one of the cards in the graveyard. Not that it really matters here, because like I said, they would have been able to clear up my board anyway. And that is game, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we have failed to win from a go second position. Who would have thought? This is the issue with budget decks, especially decks that don't really run any or many hand traps in the first place, and this one is no exception. But I promise you, the last 3 duels, this is where it lies in. This is where I show the full potential of this deck and actually scrape some wins. We did win the coin flip and we did manage to go first, so let's see what we can be doing with this hand. White Rose Cloister, very fun, going into Snowdrop Rikka. Rikka Kong Kong obviously getting us more Rikka plays. We have the option to send this card to the graveyard and then get our rank 4 play started. Very, very important here. And from that point onwards, we can be doing lots more stuff if the opponent doesn't disrupt us here, and it doesn't look like it, so we can send cards to the graveyard, get more plays out. You've seen that one before. We have hit the Rikka engine again, very important. We have also gotten a way to burn them a little bit and go into the rank 1 Sylvan cards. With that one we can be doing more plays, although I do not have that many good Sylvan monsters at my disposal right now, so the second effect of it isn't amazing. That's why I try to hold it back a little bit in case I find a way to get more into the graveyard. At that point I couldn't find any, so I just go for Princess Bride and we go into the Aromaseraphy Jasmine. From that point onwards we can go into more combos, we can get Lone Fire Blossom out, and what I do here is I know I have still lots of cards in the deck that mill things, so I deck thin going into 2 Lone Fire Blossoms and then go into Guardian and hopefully mill 1 or 2 good cards, and I mill lots of good cards, and with lots of them I mean like 1.5. We do not mind the Rikka card in the graveyard, and also this gave us the last material we needed to go into the Manga Lancer, and now we have some plays during the opponent's turn, which all do not matter. Oh look, Harpy's Feather Duster. Oh look, Raigeki. Yeah, and Monster Reborn. Interesting. Then they set with 1 or 2 cards and passed the turn. I mean, it's a give and take. They are... Funnily enough, they are playing Numeron OTK. They just drew all the Go Second cards without the Numeron engine. Interesting the way it is, but sometimes that is like that. You can clear your opponent's board, but there's nothing else you can be doing. So I was unlucky and lucky in the same spot. But if they only went into the Numeron engine, we would have been fairly safe because we would have been able to clear all of their Numeron stuff. But they did run Kaijus and Lava Golem, so we would have maybe had some issues here. I decided to go into Strenna so I can get some stuff back. At this point, it's just desperate plays to get enough damage on board to possibly finish the game, and we have to find a way to out our own Rikka monster. It's not that easy to get over that attack point. If you ever played pure Rikka, then you might know the attack point stuff is sometimes problematic, and Manga Lancer's effect, you can only use each of them, like not each of them once per turn, but only one, and that once per turn, so I can't bounce my own Rikka monster, at least not during my turn, and I've wanted to find a way to possibly finish the game during during my turn right now, and that seemed to be the best option to do so. I decided to negate stuff and get rid of my Strenna this time so I don't lose out on damage, and yeah, didn't really matter overly that much. But now I can also use the level 6's effect and summon one other monster back, but I was already low on time here, so I could have possibly, and I should have possibly gone for something else here that has a bit more attack points than this one. There was the 1800 one, and if I would have gotten rid of the right material and would have sent Guardian, then I would have been able to get Guardian back, and with 2400 attack points that would have been a lot better as well. But I was on like 20 seconds at this point, so I had to hurry up a tiny bit. And here is the surprise factor: they run Numeron, but they splashed in 2 V-Jam the Cubic Seed. No idea why. The rest of the deck looks fully competitive, fully normal for a Numeron deck. And then there's 2 V-Jam the Cubic Seed in here. Funny enough, this is the card that doesn't like lose them the game here, that saves them the game. Because as you can see, there's no way of getting rid of it. And you think, oh yeah, Manga Lancer can just like deal with it then doing the next turn and whatnot. But it can't, because you have to take damage equal to its attack. And if you don't take damage, then you can't return it to the hand. And this one doesn't have any attack, so you can't return it to the hand. And they're smart, and they're not using the effect of this one after I attacked into it. So I cannot negate anything, or I cannot get rid of it. This card stays on the board, and it cannot be destroyed by battle. And there is nothing I can be doing about this right now, because we already cycled through most of our extra deck stuff. And the only card that can help us is Black Ship, funny enough, for once. And I was still quite low on time, and there was nothing that they really did, so I thought maybe they're playing stall at this point, who knows. So I thought maybe I can get them to trigger the effect if I just attack into it with every monster. Maybe there's one they want to get rid of, doesn't really matter. I was looking for a way to go into Black Ship, which requires 2 level 4 monsters, so not too easy. There they drew into their Kaiju. I don't know why they got rid of the Synchro monster. I know it had the most attack, but one of these two would have probably been a bit better, or this one. It is what it is. It didn't really matter overly anyway, because we were linking that off in the first place. Deco Talker, because Monster Reborn has given us access to some stuff, and this card could have been dangerous for us too. Solemn Judgment, very, very interesting. Maybe they didn't like that when they played Numeron and they had to go first for some reason that they didn't really have any plays. Yeah, Solemn Judgment, interesting card to play Numeron as well. In the end, it did work out for them if they would have kept it, because now we can go into the level 4 combos, and with the level 4 combos we can go into Black Sheep. Black Sheep is a different card, and we can go into the Corn, and Corn gets rid of this card outset, also burns them, and now we can attack over their stuff. Very, very, very interesting. They play a very interesting variant of Numeron where they have all the cards that search as Numeron, and some go second cards, like you see Raigeki, Harpist Feather Duster, Kaijus, Lava Golem, and the rest is stall-ish cards for when you like budget stall cards that when your opponent makes you go first, or you don't draw into one of your Numeron cards, that you can stall another turn till you get the Numeron engine on. Interesting. Apparently got them to platinum as well. I found that a bit funny, but you can see what this deck is capable of. It showed a bit of a, well, how do the turns work and what do you have at your disposal and what might cripple this deck a tiny bit. Moving on to the next replay. 9th replay, we won the coin flip and actually managed to go first again. Very good. Hopefully they do not have Maxi. Their card backs are already giving away what they're playing, and they do have Maxi. But this time we don't give them too many cards because we actually started with the Rikka combo in hand already. Very, very strong. I did mill some cards just to see, and they got rid of Impermanence. If they would have used Impermanence on the effect of this one, I would have had a bit of a harder time, and I would have had to use some different approach to this whole turn. But now they made it a bit easier for me because they did not negate the level modulation. But why would you? Most people wouldn't, but it would have made sense. Here I had to use Sheet, so the quick effect of this one can be negated by the other card, and also I can tribute it then, because otherwise if I would have tried to get rid of it otherwise, then they would have just chained the effect and I would have to use the stuff anyway. And I know Exosisters don't have that many plays, so if you stop them from getting a board presence, there's not much they can do. And at this point they thought, oh god, I can't do anything, let's surrender. Jokes on them, there weren't that many cards that would have helped me the next turn to finish the game, but maybe they didn't have anything like Maxi or whatnot in hand, and I would have been able to put up some board pressure. I still had stuff in the graveyard, I had the Rikka stuff up as well, so there would have been things that I could have been doing, so might have won this game during my turn. Not sure if they needed to surrender this one, but they've had enough, and we did counter their first turn board, so I was quite happy about that one. Let's move on to the last replay and see if we can continue this winning streak that this time actually is a streak. And we managed to secure the go first for one last time, and I was so happy about this because I might have been able to actually do some combos. We're playing against 50 card Chaos Ruler Turbo Red Dragon Archfiend, so if they get their combos off, a fairly decent deck. If not though, this deck will crumble, and since we're going first, this might be our chance to play a normal turn without the opponent having Maxi, and it is. No Maxi, we mill some really good cards here. We get to summon Peacekeeper off of the effect of Peacekeeper. Isn't that fun? We then mill another Sylvan card. Really shows off the Sylvan engine if everything goes well. Had to make this card level 8 because I wasn't sure what else to make it. Comes to bite me because it doesn't really matter that much if I had level 8 or not. It is what it is sometimes. Sometimes you win, sometimes your mind loses. We use obviously the Evil Thorn combo because it gives us one more monster on board and instant access to another Sylvan card. Really hitting it out with the Sylvans right now. We get to go into Monster Reborn, and there is something that I wanted to keep in mind. I could have gotten into the Strenna combo earlier, like, well, I used Strenna now, but I could have tributed Strenna for the effect of some other card, and then be able to use Monster Reborn to get a spell negate with the Hyperton that we can summon off of the other cards, because now we can go into the Rikka plays, and the Rikka plays get us stuff, and that one gets us to the trap, and now we go into Banger Lancer, and so on and so on and so on. Now we use Monster Reborn. We will still go into the whole combo, but I think there would have been a way to attribute Strenna a bit earlier, and with, I think, by summoning out the Rikka monster that we searched, and then we would have been able to equip the spell card in the graveyard, and with the spell card then we would have had a spell negate during the opponent's turn, just to keep that one in mind. Sometimes it's very hard to see all of those lines, especially if you're relatively new to a specific deck. We have a monster negate, a second monster negate in the graveyard, a monster bounce, and they have Forbidden Droplet, getting rid of 3 of our things, but we still have the monster negate in the graveyard, and we still have the trap card. Decided not to tribute their monster right now because it didn't really matter that much, and now they have their normal summon, so I thought, let's just hit them here where it hurts, and it did hurt, and we would have gotten our monster effects back and our attack damage back, and we would have easily finished them the next turn. So another win for the power that is Sylvan Rikka, very, very strong. You can see the deck has definite power spikes. The deck is very, very interesting in terms of special summoning, very, very interesting in terms of board building, but has clear weaknesses. Spell traps are a massive weakness of this deck, and attack value can be a bit of a weakness, not as bad as with Rikka, but it's still not optimal, and obviously hand traps and disruptions by going second isn't the best where the deck shines at. The thing is, it does also put up a lot of damage on board, it puts up a lot of monsters on board, and it's extremely fun to play, seeing you excavate and mill and hopefully hit the right things, having to play around, oh, what is still left in my deck, what effects have I used, what effects haven't I used, how can I use this board and the cards that I have now to go into the stuff that I want to be going into. Very, very fun deck, just not overly competitive. If you upgrade it a little bit, it can be a lot better than it is, but it will always hit the spots of very vulnerable to hand traps and disruptions, very one-sided in terms of what it does. There's not all that much you can be doing. You can put in like Hope Harbinger and be safe from like one spell card, but then trap cards are still a bit of an issue, and there's lots of things that you can include that make this deck a tiny bit better, but it won't make it super competitive, and it won't be like a crazy diamond contender. Maybe at the end of a season you can make it into diamond with like an improved version of it, but I wouldn't say this is diamond 1 worthy in the slightest. Like Sylvans in general, they just aren't, even with the new Link monster that hasn't overly changed. I think the new Link monster works out a lot better for certain other plant decks that might be diamond 1 worthy in the long run. Let's recap a little bit. We played 10 games. We did win 5 through random circumstances sometimes, but I feel like 5 is roundabout how good this deck is. It's not awful, it's not great. There's kind of like the middle ground of it. Possibly 4 would have made more sense in the end against reasonably well opponents, like against reasonably good decks. It wasn't against the crazy meta because yes, it cannot stand up to Tearlaments and other tier 1 decks, but it can stand up to decks on its own level, and it can create a nice and fun time for you if you be playing this deck in general. Hope you like the series. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, tell me what I could do differently, and most importantly, I hope you have a good day.